Charles Roberts. I was born in December the 25th, 1950 on Christmas Day. So I am a Christmas baby. I grew up really here in Austin. I spent a lot of time during the summer months with my grandparents, both in Seguin, Texas, where I was actually born, in my grandmother's house in 1950. And that's on my mother's side, and on my father's side, which is between Lockhart, Luling, they call it the sticks, where the snakes and all of that roam, and the deer and all that stuff, real country-like. That's where I spent the summer months, and really every opportunity I had to go there, I spent time there because I had a special connection with the country more so than I did with the city life. And I still have that desire to visit where we used to live, and actually where my parents grew up and where they came from and their environment, which still remains the same today as it was back then. It really hasn't changed that much. And so, rather than reminisce, I just go and see it visually, and so it's helps me along the way to realize just how far God has actually brought my family as a person. Myself as a person, and my family as a family, and just how far we really have come over the years, based on what I remember. When you talk to them, of course, I like to sit down and talk with older people because I think they're wiser. They have a lot of wisdom, and they have a lot of knowledge about history because they've been there and they've done that. And some of the things that I hear mostly around Austin is how they talk about and remember how we couldn't go across I-35. And there was a boundary there for some apparent reason, and where is before they actually integrated the city. Matter of fact, we lived in a city that was segregated, basically. Even though we were a part of Austin, but we were segregated, and basically, the same time. That would the economical conditions of Austin and the availability to things that we didn't have access to on this side of town that wasn't even possible. We didn't have them, but they had them because we couldn't even go into some of the retail stores. I remember basically having to go to the door in the back of the business to buy a hamburger or something. It was a little small window with a bell, and you push the bell, they come open the window and ask you what you want. You tell them, and you have to actually, me myself, I was so small, I had to get a box and stand on it just to give them the money. And I remember not being able to go into the front places and go into restaurants like these children nowadays have the opportunity of, and a variety of places they can go with no rejection, except them not being dressed, not following the dress code, etc. But back then, when I was coming up, we couldn't even go downtown to Woolworth. You could go in, but you couldn't go to certain places in the store. Mostly the blacks shopped at places on East 6th Street now. That is the quote-unquote Mardi Gras district. Back in the day, that was one of the focal points of Black Americans on Friday nights and Saturday shopping. Stores such as Levine's, places that was called Gilman's. There was a shoe shine shop on the corner, a few joints that was next door where basically, it was sort of like the cuts, they call it, East 12th and East 11th Street, but it was also on 6th Street. And if you wanted to meet, you wanted to see some of the people that you knew that lived in East Austin, most of the time you would see them on 6th Street on Friday evenings, on Saturdays. And I could vaguely remember during the summer, we didn't have the opportunity to spend a lot of time on Rosewood Park, even though it was there. There were some children that had the opportunity, but there was a lot of them who did not have the opportunity. Of course, there was Austin, and there was East Austin, and then there was Montopolis, and there was the Dale Valley area, where even some of the blacks migrated that originally had stayed in Austin, the Austin area. As a matter of fact, my family, they migrated to Metropolis. My mother still stays there to this day. And it's a wonderful place. It was a wonderful place to grow up because it was a close-knit community and a close-knit family. And I remember, the story about it take a village to raise a child. That's true. Because I can remember when my mom had to work and some of the other moms or grandmothers was at home, that's when grandmothers lived in the same house, you know what I mean? They maintained the discipline of everybody. Grandmother was the queen. Back in the day when I came up, you had a close-knit relationship with grandmother because she was actually, excuse me, she was actually the head of the household, even though you had a father and a mother there. But grandmothers took the role of being the head of the household. They actually really controlled things. They actually, they enforced the discipline and the amount of discipline and et cetera. Along with love and, of course, tough love we call it, with a switch and stuff like that. And so I live in the Metropolis area, which is just south of airport, right across the bridge there. And Dale Valley was kind of to the left of 183, right across the bridge. And so we had a very close-knit family and friends. We became what friends really are. Compared to what I see today, friends are not really friends. But back in the day when I came along, 51, 52, 53, 54, 60s and stuff like that. As a matter of fact, I lived in that area. I will never forget the day that John F. Kennedy got shot in Dallas, Texas. I was attending Allison Elementary School at that time, and I often reflect back on that day. I can see it just like it happened yesterday, and I can remember it just like it happened yesterday. We was getting ready to go down to Congress. They was going to have the big parade, and he was going to fly in from Dallas, and then all of a sudden the teachers and stuff called everybody back in. The buses were lined up in the front of the school. We were ready to go, and they made that announcement of John F. Kennedy. And it was three things that I've always remembered. And I tell my children all the time, I say there were three pictures that your mother, your grandmother always had in the house. If she didn't have any pictures of us, which, back then, they didn't have the technology they have today with cell phones and et cetera, iPads, you take pictures instantly, there it is, and get them printed, put them on the wall. We didn't have the accessibility to all of that, back in the day. So, so around our walls, we didn't see each other. We didn't see family members. We saw leaders of the country, and there were three pictures, and that I always tell people, even when I preach sometime, I bring up these three pictures. And those three pictures, one of them was Jesus, and one of them was Martin Luther King, and the other one was John F. Kennedy. Those three pictures were on everybody's wall that I can remember going into their house. The first thing you saw when you looked at the walls was those three pictures. And I remember it plain as day. And, and as I grew older, then I realized why those three pictures were there. Because those three men was the most important three men that I've ever read about. Never met any of them with Jesus. But, just in history and reading, the books of Martin Luther King and John F. Kennedy and watching the movies and, the documentaries and et cetera, you come to realize that these three men play and still plays a very important part of history and the future and our current life right today. Yates Drugstore, that was on the corner of Chicon and 12th Street. There was a grocery store right down the road on Rosewood and Chicon, right on the corner. The guy named was Balbo, I remember that. Then there was Wales Grocery, which is still there. I don't know if it's changed names or not. I haven't paid that much attention to it. But I remember those particular places. There was a grocery store now where Hoover's is. that used to be, I think the name of that grocery store was, oh my God, I can't even think.
Originally it was French Place.
No, it wasn't that. It was
Minimax.
yeah, and they had these green and white stamps, and when you shop, they give you these stamps to depend on how much money you made, and you put them in this little booklet, and once you get the little booklet filled, you go back shopping, and then they took so much off or gave you a discount or whatever. I vaguely remember that, and basically shoe shine shops up on 12th Street, and Shorters, and a place that was on 12th and Chicon, sort of north of Chicon, north of 12th on Chicon. There was a little small grocery store that everybody went to that grocery store, and I never knew the name of it because they always called the store Greasy Dick's. That was the name of that everybody would say. Go up to Greasy Dick's and get me some press ham, or go get me some cheese and salami. Moon cookies, because that's basically what we grew up on, was cheese, salami, summer sausage, and moon cookies. They're the big cookies that big like a moon, and I remember every day, and we ate that every day. I mean, every day, and when I look at today's environment and look at the children today, they just don't know how blessed they really are to have just what they have, and a lot of them don't think they have enough. But if you go back and compare it to the days of my youth, you got too much. You got too much, and I remember the main course meals on Sunday, because there wasn't one main course meal, and it was on Sundays, and it was chicken. It was fried chicken, and you had to kill the chicken on Saturday and pluck him and do everything, and Mama would cut him up and put him in flour or whatever on Sunday, and I have never understood it, and I don't understand it to this day, and I'll tell the world on national television. I don't understand how a lady could take one chicken and cut it up into 50 pieces, and the 50 pieces was enough to satisfy everybody in the house and had something left over for tomorrow. I don't see how and my mother still does it. I don't understand how she do it. And I've tried it, and I get 3 or 4 pieces of chicken. Mama got 40, 50 pieces of chicken. It'd be a stack on the stove like this, fried chicken, the best chicken in the world, by the way. Nobody can fry it like that. Not Church's Chicken, not that place up on 12th and Airport right there. Nobody can fry chicken like the older black women fried chicken back in the day. Remembering some of the places, those are some of the Ewan's Garage, Owens Garage, service stations, Mr. Wyatt's service station up on Chestnut and MLK right there across from David Chapel. I mean, it's just probably many more that I'm missing, that was here, during the time. I remember vaguely the Bluebird ice cream truck that used to go around the neighborhood and sell ice cream. It was pink and blue and stuff, and everybody would wait for that. That mostly went up and down Rosewood, because that's where Margie's Barbershop, which was right down here by Lawson Lane and Rosewood, just about a couple of blocks from here. And there are a lot of Jew joints across the street from that. And Keelan Junior High School, of course, the older Keelan was still behind it. And further down across the railroad track, just after you pass Rosewood Park, there were some businesses also in that area as well that we used to go to a lot like that. But
one of the places that everybody remembers is Harlem Theater.
The Harlem Theater, right? I'm right there on 12th Street. I was looking at it not long ago in a book, and I saw it, and it brings me so many memories, because that's where we went on Saturdays. And I remember the chili dogs that they had in that little white cone of ice cream. And the lady that worked in there, her name was Helen. I remember she worked at the booth. And it was just the smell of that popcorn. I can still smell it today. It just was amazing of how back in 40-some years ago, blacks operated, and how they stuck together, and how they were helpful to one another compared to what I see today. I didn't go to any elementary school here in East Austin. I went to Montopolis Elementary School, which was basically a barn. It wasn't really a building. It was kind of like a barn where you would raise or keep cattle, or, sheep or something, whatever. And they finally put some tin around it, and then they put a wooden floor and those little small chairs that we used with the desk built onto the chair. Remember, the teacher's name is Underwood, and the other one was named Miss Smith. And they were the only two teachers that ever taught in that school, from the history of that school until the time they closed that school down. It still exists, not as a school, but as a historical mark. It's still there. It's about a block from my mother's house on the same side of Montopolis Drive. and it's still there, and occasionally they'll open it up and let people go in and walk around. It was just 3 rooms. It was a classroom, and a lunchroom. Those were the only 3 rooms, and they finally built the restrooms on the outside because the restrooms was originally outhouses, and I remember it. But what I remember most about the school is how caring the teachers were in ensuring that the students got an equal and a quality education. And I never forget those teachers. And the spankings that I got, or the whoopings I got, whatever you want to call them. When you look back over the years at what people actually did to ensure that we as a people had a better life, you have to go back to the black teachers. I'm not biased or prejudiced in any form or fashion, but I have to go back to what I know. Not what I heard, not what I read, but what I personally experienced myself. And the difference, because I had an opportunity as I progressed into junior high school and high school, when they started diversifying, the schools, even before they even integrated them. They had started to diversify in the area of teachers and even in coaching. And we had that. And the difference in their teaching and the difference in the teaching of people like Miss Frazier at Anderson High School. Miss Conley used to teach at Keaton, which is house is historical site right here on this corner. Miss Smith, Miss Underwood. When you go back and look at that, Ewan, Pickford, Charles Aiken, when you go back and look at that, Bell, you go back and look at all of that, and you compare it to what I see today, there's no comparison. It's like a 360. It's a difference between night and day. And every child that went to school, whether they were slow or medium bright, brilliant, they all had a mission. And that was to graduate because they wanted better. And they wanted to further themselves, and so many of them did. If you go back and look at history and look at the history books of East Austin, there have been some great, great, great people that has walked these streets. That name has stayed hidden behind the curtain because of whatever reason. And people never knew that they existed, or they are actually from Austin, or they came this way. For some reason, they hid that in history. And there's so many things. We don't get to this. I know we're talking about the elementary school, but there's so many legends walking the street even today. And our children, and I feel sorry for them, they have to choose somebody that they're never going to meet, from a football team or from a basketball team or from a rap group or from some group that's thousands of miles from here, that then they'll never get the opportunity to shake their hands or even be in their presence. And they have to choose and select them as a role model. When you got them walking right here every day, but it's hidden. They're hidden from society. Why did they hide legacy from society? To keep our children not knowing that there are great people right up and down these streets every day, and you probably pass 15 of them every day and don't even know it. They're here. And one thing that makes me almost want to regurgitate, to be honest about it, it's when I see a young man who has a dream of wanting to play in the NFL, play in the NBA, becoming a doctor, a lawyer, have to wear the jersey of a person that they don't even know, to make them feel somewhat attached to what their dreams are. And the dreams is walking right beside them every day. And they hide it. They hide it in the churches. They hide it in the schools. They hide it in the museums. They hide it in the communities. They hide the legacies that are still walking here. And there's no reasons why people should not know who they are. There's no reasons why something hadn't been put together. Thank God for Prairie View, that they started to recognize black athletes for the old Negro League and created the Hall of Fame. Matter of fact, I was inducted into the Prairie View Hall of Fame in 2011. Why didn't the UIL do it? John Harvey. I mean, I can go on and on. Myself. I mean, Charlie Bonner, Dick Night Train Lane. Why didn't the UIL recognize us? What happened here? You know? And people ask me that all the time. What happened? I mean, Raymond Timmons, one of the greatest high school football coaches in the history of high school football. When he died, his legacy died. Why? Coach Granville Ewing, that coached some of the fastest and greatest track clubs in high school history. What happened? When they closed down Anderson, he couldn't even get a job, a decent job. They wanted to make him an assistant coach right here in Austin, Texas. When just a year before, I ran on the relay team in 1970. They closed it in 1971. I'm the guy that ran third leg on the fastest high school relay team in the nation that he coached. With Herman Alexander, Sam Chambers, Clifton Gant. What happened? And you want to make him an assistant coach? And he's one of the greatest high school track coaches in the history of high school track, not only in Austin or Texas, but in the United States. But he's only good enough now that he's not at Anderson to become an assistant to somebody who haven't done anything, haven't improved themselves, and don't have a running record nowhere. And this man didn't put people in the Olympics. Come on. People are still talking about the relay teams that was at Anderson 45 years later. They're still talking about it. People don't talk. People don't talk about anything for 45 years for nothing. It has to be something there. The memories are there. And there are people that remember those days. You know, Mr. McDonald, Coach Jackson, both Jackson, one at Keelan and one that was at Anderson, the line coach. You had Pickford, you had, I mean, you go down the chain. I mean, great legendary coaches that legacy died. Legacy died. Did it die because they closed Anderson? No, that's not why it died. I know why it died. Ask me in private, I tell you why it died. But I know why it died. The legacy died because of the same reason why they closed the doors of Anderson High School. It wasn't good enough for a high school, but it's good enough for an alternative learning center. Somebody help me here. Somebody help me here. Some of the greatest artists, some of the greatest musicians, some of the greatest actors, some of the greatest doctors, some of the greatest lawyers, some of the greatest athletes came from right down the street. And their legacy died when they closed the door of Anderson High School. They died. Shut down completely. You can bring in 10 children right now and ask them who is Dick Night Train Lane. Where did he go to school? They can't tell you. Why? Why can't they tell you? Go out to Anderson High School. Go to Lanier High School. Go to McCallum. Ask them who is Babe Ruth. They can tell you. I mean, I'm just being honest. And this is the way I see life. And this is the way I see, what has happened to Austin. I mean, even though they say Austin is a basically diversified city. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And it's also segregated in different spots. Pflugerville. I remember that you couldn't even stop in Pflugerville to get gas. Now they migrated. Pflugerville. Well, come on. Everybody. And then move to Pflugerville. But one thing I don't understand is why is it they don't see the U-Haul trucks headed this way when they ain't going in that way? I mean, look around East Austin, especially this area. Look around. You see houses going up every day. What happened? My question is, I'm going to leave here dying answering the same question. What happened? Somebody got to tell me what happened. What happened? What happened? What happened? Did we take the legacy? Did we take the history and do we cover it up with a shovel? Do we bulldoze it down so it no longer exists? Is that what we allow to go on? Is the fight out of it? Is the fight over? I'm a person, I like to put it out there. Let everybody know. Now you start thinking about it. You start looking back. You start reminiscing. You go back and you watch when the change came. You watch when everything started to twist and turn. And you remember, and it will quickly remind you of what's going on. And, I'm just a Dick Gregory. I'm just another Jesse Jackson. I'm just another Al Sharpton. I mean, that's me. Because I have deep roots in East Austin. And I hate that my children didn't get the opportunity to go to Anderson. I have 2 children. And I hate that they didn't get the opportunity to experience what I experienced, both as a student and as an athlete.
Where did you go to junior high?
Keelan. Yes, sir. Keelan Junior High School right here. And one of the greatest things that ever happened as a transition into my life was begun right here at Keelan Junior High School, with the experience there, meeting of new people, because Allison was in Metropolis. And so the first opportunity I got, even though it was in AISD, it was sort of segregated from Austin. It was still AISD, but it really wasn't too much association between Allison, Blacksher, L.L. Campbell, Sims, etc. I didn't go to any of those schools. Quote unquote might have been better, but I ended up at Keelan because of my desire, because I wanted to go to Keelan, because of their athletic program and because of the history they had, in their athletic arena, track and football, and that's what I was, because I knew my mom and dad didn't have the money to send me to college. I knew that. And my sisters, it don't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. And even though I was young, but and I wasn't a rocket scientist, but I could figure that out just by looking at what was going on around me. If my chance to go to college and to become somebody and to do better was going to come through athletics. See, and I learned that at an early age, that it was going to take my athletic ability was going to have to be my vehicle. And that's what I put all of my emphasis in, was my athletic ability. And I think so many other blacks that grew up in East Austin, went to Keelan, went to Anderson, they put 150% of everything they ever in athletics, because that was the only opportunity they had to go to college or to have a better life or to go on in further education. Money just wasn't available like it is now. The grants and et cetera, and new and payable grants and things of that nature, just wasn't there. Matter of fact, if you look at the NCAA, come on. How many of us actually got scholarship to Division 8 school? University of Texas. Not until 1970, not until 1969 did Darrell Rowe open up the doors, and John Harvey was one of the first players that he offered a scholarship at University of Texas, played for Texas. And he played with me in the running in the backfield. One of the greatest athletes I have ever not played with, but ever seen. That's in person and on television. He lives right here in Austin, Texas, right to this day. And his legacy is talked about, but his shield. Great athletes walking up down these streets. And the AISD does not use them to try to enhance the quality of athletics or educational-wise with what they have. And I think there's so many great athletes here that would be such a great assets to not only in the area of sports, but to talk to these kids that are in sports and kind of share with them their options, because we've been there. You know, I don't have to ask what's behind those trees, because I've been behind those trees. I don't have to ask somebody that don't know, because I've been there myself. I know. As a Harvard I would probably say that it is a Harvard in the form of a high school, or Princeton in the form of a high school. Anderson High School was one of the well-known schools, not only in Texas, but in the United States. And not only for its athletics, but for the quality of students that was produced there, by the teachers that cared and wanted to ensure that these children had a better life. I mean, Anderson was a school that was many people's dream. To walk on the campus, to walk down the hallway, you felt important as a student, because you knew that if nobody cared, those teachers did, the principal did, the PTA cared. It was one of the greatest feelings to walk through those halls. Back then and even today, it was, to me, it was like having the ability to walk daily through the White House and be a part of it. And Anderson was special for so many reasons. Everywhere you would go in Texas and bring up the name Anderson High School, there was somebody who knew something about it. There's not too many high schools like that. The children, the students were, people say, well, you know, ask me all the time, were they different than the children of today? Yes. Yes, they were. I think they were more disciplined. I think they were more educated. They just didn't have the opportunity. The doors didn't open. But these are the people that open the doors for you. You ought to praise them every time you see one. Because they're the ones who didn't get the opportunity, but made and ensured that you did. And it all happened because of the closeness of the community. And Anderson High School wasn't just a high school. See, what people don't understand. The high schools we got today are just high schools. Anderson was not just a high school. Anderson was a place that focused on the future and the quality of life. It was a school that specialized in counseling. And it was a school that specialized in doing what's right. And option and failure was not an option there. But it is everywhere there. It's an option. It wasn't you get it or you don't. I don't care if I'm going to put it out here. If you get it, fine. If not, that's your life. It wasn't a school like that. It was a school where you're going to get it. That's all there was to it. You're going to get it. And they ensured that you got it. And you wasn't going to graduate until you got it. And when you did get it, they would make sure that you got it where it stayed in there. You can line up 1,000 people. And you can mix everybody you want to in it. I don't care who they are. I don't care what color they are. I can tell you what high school they went to. I can tell you they went to Anderson, the black Anderson, the original Anderson, or they went somewhere else. I can tell you. I can tell you about their demeanor, the way they act, the way they carry themselves. It's something about them. Anderson was in the AISD, but on the inside of the door, there was a private school. Everybody in there was brothers and sisters. They helped one another by whatever means necessary. They helped one another. And you didn't have people walking down the hall with guns, knives, and threatening to kill the teachers. And Cullen bomb. You didn't have folks walking in the doors with Uzi and AK-47s. And policemen walking up and down the hall. You didn't have all of that. Nowadays, you go to high school, you don't know if you're in a high school or you're in a police station. They got more cops in high schools than they do on the streets. What happened? What happened? I can tell you what happened. What happened? Anybody want to ask? I'll tell you what happened. What happened? We didn't even see a policeman. We didn't need them. We didn't need them because the quality of discipline that was instilled in every child from elementary school, whether it was Rosewood, whether it was Blackshear, whether it was Ella Campbell, whether it was Sim, followed those children all the way to high school and even after high school. It was embedded in them. Discipline was embedded in them. You cannot educate an undisciplined child. That's the key that they're missing in these schools nowadays. You can't educate an undisciplined child. Discipline has to come first. You take a disciplined child, and I guarantee you, he'll succeed. You take one that's undisciplined, I hate to say it, but he's bound to be a failure. Discipline is number one. When they learn to maintain discipline in high school, then one of the main keys to discipline they took away. But thank God, our kids still carry the wood of integrity, and that's when they took prayer to school. I would forever want to figure out who allowed it and why. But you know what's strange about that, Mr. Blackwell, is they don't want prayer in school, and they want to separate church from state. But the minute something happened, when all hell broke loose, what's the first thing they call for? And I'm just saying. So why is it legal now? Why is it legal to pray now? I mean, I'm puzzled. You don't want the kids to pray together in school because you took it out. And you don't want the Ten Commandments to be a part of the state where they had them in courthouses and state capitals and stuff. You took them out, threw them on the lawn. But when all hell breaks loose, what's the first thing you do? Who's the first person you call? I'm confused. Maybe somebody see this, maybe they'll understand. But I'm confused, and I'm sure I'm not the only one confused. There's a lot of people confused. One of the key factors in the history of schools, whether they were black, white, orange, Hispanic, Japanese, Chinese, it didn't matter, was prayer before class and prayer after class. It was something about that kept those kids close. Somebody, the chemistry there. But when you took God out of school, you took discipline out too. professional football player. To be honest, that's what it was. It was a professional football player. I later, after I got in college, it was a dream to become a professional football player. Now, what they were based on, I don't know, but it was to become a professional football player or, a coach or something related to athletics. Later in years, after I was in college, and I looked at it and I said, "Oh my God, I made the biggest mistake of my life," because at that particular time, I wanted to be a doctor, and I feel like I would have been more successful at being a doctor than I would have at athletics, because the opportunity was greater in becoming a physician than it was becoming an NFL superstar. But since I was already, coming along well in sports, and I went to college on athletic scholarship, went to Grambling State University, which was hard to do back in the day, because if you think about it, all the black athletes had to go to all black colleges. And look at all the great black athletes you had to compete with. And to be offered a scholarship to a black university, especially such as Grambling, which was well known over the world as producing NFL football players, come on now. Come on now. Writing's on the wall. So I went to Grambling, and I got down to Grambling, and I had the opportunity to be around people like the legendary coach Eddie Robinson and stuff like that. I didn't play because I went on track scholarship, but I was with a football star. But I also ran track, so I went on the track scholarship, and I only stayed at Grambling for one semester. Grambling was a great school, but there was something missing as far as focusing on the future of athletics. Of athletes. I felt like it was, if you're a football player, you were fine, but you just an individual. They didn't care about you. I transferred to the University of Texas at Arlington, and everything that I learned it from the University of Texas at Arlington. I ran track for them, and I was at the same school with John Harvard, a great football player that fortunately married my sister. And he was one of the greatest football players in the history of not only college football, but he's considered one of the greatest football players of all time. College NFL. I mean, Roger Staubach, Gail Sayles, Walter Payton all have commented on his athletic ability. He lives right in Hutto. Walks these streets every day, right here in Austin. And people who went to school with him know him. Children don't even know who he is. It's pitiful. But they know who that number 88 wide receiver for Dallas is. Brian, or whatever his name is. That they don't never meet. If they met him, he got about 5 seconds to spend with you, and that's, hey, and he gone, because he got bodyguards all over him, because he think he's better than the world. I'm just being honest, and I hope you see it. And he started spending more time with the black youths and spend less time at the Bentley dealership. I'm just being honest. And take some of that money that you buying these Rolls Royces and Bentleys for $400,000 a piece and park them in your driveway and paying all that hot tax on them on you. Take that money and build a training facility in your neighborhood that you came out of. Build a Head Start educational center in the neighborhood that you came out of it, since you say it was so bad and you didn't have an opportunity to do this and do that. Well, now that you got the money, you think those children have the opportunity? No, not without your money. Once you go back and build something for them, rather than buy 5 cars and a $2 million house that you don't need. You know what I mean? I'm serious. Why don't you go back and build a library for them? Why don't you go back and do it? I would. If I had that kind of money, let me tell you. They talk about no child left behind. It wouldn't be no child left behind in East Austin if I had that kind of money. I would ensure that. There are jobs available. Plenty of jobs available. But the qualifications, master degree, Bachelor of Arts, PhD, and something that they're not qualified for. And the jobs that are available that Rick Perry want to say that that's available and Austin got jobs, people just don't want them. Well, who want to go to work and raise a family for $7.25 an hour? I mean, and be for real. I mean, you can't even pay a car note for a decent car to go to work, less known trying to have a decent home and a quality of life for you and your family for $7.25 an hour. You can't even do it for $15 an hour. You know, but they jack up minimum wages, 10 cents and think, everybody's supposed to give a party in the street. Who? We rich. We rich. They just gave me a 10 cents raise. Time 40. Think about it. 40 hours a week, 10 cents raise, time 40. How many money you got? We rich. Now I can go to Lake Travis. I can go up to Rolling Hills and Westlake, and I can buy me one of them big houses on them hills for $7.25 now. And I can put me a Mercedes in the front yard, and I can send my kids to private schools, and quote unquote, $7.25 an hour. I just got a 10 cents raise. Wow, I'm rich. That's how I see it. And I'm just being real. And they want to get on national television and tell the world, right here from Austin, that Austin is the place to come to. And while you're on your way here, you meet 1,000 folks leaving. And they say, well, Austin is increasing by 2,000 people a day. Yeah, 2,000 people with degrees. And that's what's happening. So they leaving